There's a parasite living inside me. I first noticed it 3 weeks ago. It started as a faint itch deep beneath my skin somewhere in the meat of my thigh. At first I thought it was just a mosquito bite or an ingrown hair, you know how it is. Your body does weird things sometimes, and you shrug it off, but this was different. The itch wasn't on the surface. It felt like it was coming from inside me, like something was wriggling around in there just beneath the muscle. I ignored it for a few days, hoping it would go away, but it didn't. Instead, it got worse. The itch turned into a dull ache, and then the ache turned into a sharp stabbing pain that would come and go in waves. I started to feel nauseous all the time, like my body was trying to reject something it couldn't quite get rid of. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I was constantly exhausted, but every time I closed my eyes, I'd feel that thing moving inside me, and a jerk awake in me heart pant. Finally, I went to the doctor. I told her about the pain, the nausea, the exhaustion. She listened patiently, nodding along. And then she ordered a blood test and an ultrasound. "It's probably just a cyst," she said, smiling reassuringly. "We'll take a look and see what's going on." I didn't believe her. I knew it wasn't a cyst. Cysts don't move. The ultrasound was strange. The technician was a young guy, maybe in his late 20s, with a friendly smile and a calm demeanor. He squirted the cold gel onto my thigh and started moving the wand around, staring intently at the screen. At first he seemed relaxed, almost bored, but then his expression changed. His brow furrowed, and he leaned closer to the screen, his eyes narrowed. "What is it?" I asked, my voice trembling. He didn't answer right away. He just kept staring at the screen, moving the wand around, pressing it harder into my skin. Finally, he said, "I'm not sure. I need to get the doctor." My heart sank. I knew something was wrong. I could see it in his face. The doctor came in a few minutes later, her expression calm but serious. She took the wand from the technician and started examining the images herself. She didn't say anything for a long time. Then she turned to me and said, "There's something there. It's unusual." "What do you mean, unusual?" I asked, my voice shaking. She hesitated, then said, "It looks like some kind of mass, but it's moving. I've never seen anything like it before." I felt a cold wave of dread wash over me. "What does that mean?" She shook her head. "I don't know. We'll need to do more tests, an MRI, maybe a biopsy, but whatever it is, it's not normal." I left the clinic that day with a referral for an MRI and a growing sense of unease. The doctor had tried to reassure me, telling me not to worry, that they'd figure out what was going on, but I could see the doubt in her eyes. She didn't know what it was either. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling that thing inside me moving, writhing like it was alive. I tried to tell myself it was just my imagination, that I was freaking myself out. But deep down, I knew the truth. There was something inside me, something that shouldn't be there. The MRI was scheduled for the next week, but I couldn't wait that long. I needed answers. I needed to know what was happening to me. So I started doing research. I spent hours online searching for anything that might explain what was going on. I read about parasites, about tumors, about rare diseases that could cause strange symptoms, but nothing quite fit. The closest thing I found was a condition called delusional parasitosis, where people believe they're infested with parasite. Then I found a T. It was buried deep in an obscure medical forum, a thread from years ago. The title was simple: "Something is living inside me." I clicked on it, my heart racing, and started reading. The post was from a woman who described symptoms almost identical to mine. The itching, the pain, the feeling of something moving inside her. She'd gone to doctors, had tests done, but no one could figure out what was wrong. Then one day she woke up and found a small black worm-like creature crawling out of a lesion on her arm. She managed to capture it in a jar and took it to a specialist, who identified it as a type of parasitic nematode. The specialist told her that the parasite had likely been dormant inside her for years, maybe even since she was a child, and something had triggered it to become active. He said there was no known cure, no way to kill it without killing her. The parasite was part of her, now feeding off her blood, her tissue, her organs. It would grow, reproduce, and eventually consume her from the inside out. The woman's last post was a single sentence: "I can feel them moving inside me. I don't have much time left." I stared at the screen, my hands trembling. It couldn't be real. It had to be a hoax, some kind of sick joke. But deep down I knew it wasn't. I could feel it. The thing inside me wasn't just a parasite, it was something worse. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling the thing moving inside me, growing, spreading. I could feel it in my leg, in my stomach, in my chest. It was everywhere, and it was getting stronger. The next morning I called the clinic and begged them to move up my MRI. They said they couldn't, that the earliest they could get me in was still 3 days away. I hung up the phone and sat there staring at the wall, feeling the panic rising in my chest. I couldn't wait 3 days, I couldn't wait another minute. I needed to see it. I needed to know what it was. I grabbed a knife from the kitchen and went into the bathroom. I locked the door behind me and sat down on the edge of the bathtub. My heart pounding, I rolled up my pant leg and stared at my thigh, at the spot where the pain was the worst. The skin looked normal, no marks, no lesions, nothing to suggest that something was living inside me, but I could feel it just beneath the surface, writhing, squirming. I took a deep breath and pressed the tip of the knife against my skin. I hesitated for a moment, my hand trembling, but then I pushed down. The pain was sharp and immediate. But I didn't stop. I cut a small incision, just deep enough to break the skin, and blood welled up around the blade. I set the knife down and pressed my fingers against the wound, spreading it open. At first I didn't see anything, just blood and flesh, but then I felt it. A movement, a twitch just beneath the surface. I pressed harder, and suddenly something emerged from the wound. It was small, no bigger than a grain of rice, and black. Just like the woman in the forum had described, it wriggled and squirmed, trying to escape, but I grabbed it with my fingers and pulled it out. I held it up to the light, my hands shaking. It was a worm, but unlike any worm I'd ever seen. Its body was segmented, covered in tiny hair-like spines, and its head was a grotesque bulbous thing, with a circular mouth lined with rows of tiny needle-like teeth. It writhed in my grip, its mouth opening and closing, as if it was trying to bite. I dropped it into the sink and turned on the faucet, watching as it was swept down the drain. Then I sat there staring at the blood running down my leg, feeling a cold, numb horror settle over me. It was real. There was something inside me, and it wasn't just one. I could feel them moving, spreading, growing. They were everywhere. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't go to the hospital. They wouldn't believe me. They'd think I was crazy. And even if they did believe me, what could they do? There was no cure, no way to kill them without killing me. I spent the next few days in a daze, barely eating, barely sleeping. I could feel them inside me, moving, feeding, growing. I could feel them in my legs, in my stomach, in my chest. They were everywhere, and they were getting stronger. Then one night, I woke up to a sharp stabbing pain in my chest. I sat up, gasping for air, and felt something move inside me, something big. I tore off my shirt and looked down at my chest. My skin was bulging, rippling, as if something was trying to push its way out. I could see the shape of it just beneath the surface, writhing, squirming. I grabbed the knife from the nightstand and pressed it against my chest, right where the bulge was. I didn't hesitate. This time I cut into my skin deep and blood poured out. I spread the wound open with my fingers, and suddenly something burst out of me. It was bigger than the first one, at least 6 inches long and thicker, with a grotesque segmented body and a bulbous head. It writhed and squirmed, trying to escape, but I grabbed it and pulled it. I held it up to the light, my heart pounding. It was the same as the first one, but bigger, stronger. Its mouth opened and closed, its needle-like teeth glistening in the light. I could feel more of them inside me, moving, growing, getting ready to burst out. I knew then that I was running out of time. They were going to kill me. They were going to consume me from the inside out. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't go to the hospital. I couldn't tell anyone they'd lock me up, call me crazy, but I couldn't just sit here and wait to die. I grabbed the knife and started cutting. I didn't care about the pain. I didn't care about the blood. I just needed to get them out. I cut into my legs, my stomach, my chest, pulling them out one by one, dropping them into the sink, watching as they writhed, squirmed, their needle-like teeth gnashing. But it wasn't enough. There were too many of them. They were everywhere. and they were growing faster than I could cut them out. I don't know how much longer I have. I can feel them inside me, moving, feeding, growing. I can feel them in my brain, in my heart, in my lungs. They're everywhere, and they're getting stronger. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to stop them, but I know one thing for sure. They're not just parasites. There's something worse. And they're not going to stop until there's nothing left of me.